I'm George Casen. I'm the host for today's review. It's The Descendants. It's a movie about the personal and business life of Matthew King, who is the descendant. Let's get started. This movie, The Descendants, showcases the life of Matthew King, who's an attorney in Honolulu and also an heir, one of the trustees, and the main, the one who handles the estate of this 25,000 acre parcel in Kaua'i that is up to be sold to a developer. And he has all his cousins who have squandered some of their money, so they need the proceeds from the sale to keep up their life, He also is dealing with his wife was in a boating accident, and she's in a coma. And he's got these two daughters, I think 14 and 8, right? And he has to be the parent, both, not only have to handle his business, but he's got to be a parent for these two young women, right? So this movie just shows all the different, things he's going through, both business-wise and personal life-wise. And the house he's living in, they had a number on Old Poly Highway they showed in the movie, but that's not the right number. It's in the 3800 block of Old Poly Road. And beautiful old, house, historical house, right? They show that. But they changed the number because they didn't want people going to the exact number. They had a different number, but they also had Old Poly Road. But I found the house. Okay, so the movie starts off, right? And basically, it starts with showing his wife she's behind a boat, and she's on the water, right? And she's happy, and she's holding on to her thing behind the boat, and then they cut that, and then you find that she is in the hospital, and she's in a coma, right? They take her to the hospital, and you don't know initially what the prognosis is for her, what's going to happen to her. But then as the movie progresses, they show him with her physician, the neurologist or brain specialist. And he breaks to Matthew King that she's brain dead except for the back cerebellum, which is like my ex-wife also was brain dead. And I'll get into that, right? So I really commiserate with this movie because so many things here, even though I'm not native Hawaiian, from his life relates to things that I dealt with in my life. And a lot of people, when you watch a movie, sometimes it plays into your own life, But so basically, the physician is telling him that they're going to have to pull the plug. But he doesn't want to tell a lot of people. He doesn't want to tell her close friends. He doesn't want to tell their friends. He doesn't want to tell his family members. And initially, he doesn't want to tell his daughters, right? Especially the young one, Scotty, because she'd be devastated. And eventually, he breaks it to the older daughter. And it seems that she had issues. She's 14, 15 years old, all teenagers. They have issues with their parents. And since the mother, Elizabeth, was pretty much her main parent, because he's so involved with his legal matter, his firm, right? What he's doing as an attorney is that she was pretty much taking care of the daughters, and now he has to, right? So that was just an aside. But the older daughter, right? She starts screaming that she had problems with her mother, that angry at her mother and wasn't really talking that much to her mother. So it's sort of a difficult situation when someone is sick like that in a coma and you've got issues with them, right? So that they show that scene, right? So he's not telling it. He's telling everybody, Matt King, that she's going to get better, or we don't know yet, but he really knows. He's holding it in. He doesn't want to tell anybody. So then eventually he has a big party at his house, right? Invites a lot of their friends over and some of their relatives, and he breaks it. And people are very uncomfortable and unhappy. Like one of their really close friends, she had gone to the hospital and she was putting makeup on his wife, Elizabeth, thinking that she's going to get better, you know, because in the hospital she didn't have any makeup on. And then when he breaks this in front of her and her husband and all these other people, the friend starts crying because she was putting makeup on a corpse, you know, and very devastating for her, right? So this is the issues with the wife, right? And we'll get a little more into that. Now with the estate, the 25,000 acre estate on Kauai, right? It's from his great grandmother, who was an Ali'i, native Hawaiian, right? And married this guy with European descent, right? And then he's the descendant, and that's where the name of the movie comes, The Descendants, right? And he's got this 25,000 acre estate on Kauai, and he's the only trustee that has signing power, right? He makes the decision. That's what he was designated at. So he has a meeting with all his cousins. You know, Beau Bridges plays one of his cousins. Meantime, Matt King is played by George Clooney, plays the role excellent, right? And Beau Bridges is one of the cousins that is prominently, you know, displayed in this movie. And his older daughter, I'll get into this, is Shailene Woodley. That's a really good actress. And Jay Fidel and I, that usually do this show, one of the other movies that we reviewed, she was the main protagonist in, and she's really a good actress. So all the acting is really good. So getting back to this, he has a big meeting with all these trustees, right? For the estate, right? All his cousins, you know, after so many generations, there's like 30 or 40 cousins, or I forgot, 12 to 15 or whatever. And they have to, by lot, they have to put yes or no. Do they want to sell? And he knows that there's a few that don't want to sell. They want to hold on to this parcel because it's part of the family history, you know. I mean, and it's pristine, it's beautiful, it's a beautiful environmental, you know, acreage, right? So he takes the votes, they put it in this Hawaiian wood bowl, koa bowl, right? And it seems that the majority, except for those few holdouts, want to sell because they need the money, you know. They squandered some of their money and they need the money, right? So the vote comes back that they want to sell. And he is going to be the one to make the final choice. So he sort of thinks about it. And right before that vote, he flies out to Kauai. And he just looks, he picks his two daughters. And they look at it's a beautiful, from the top of the hill, they show the bay and they show the ocean and everything. So lo and behold, another term I use a lot, Matthew King decides he's not going to sell because he's the one who makes the final decision. And some of the cousins go, my God. And Beau Bridges says, you got to be kidding, you know, you got to be kidding. What do you mean you're not going to sell? So this is the crescendo, right? And then Matt King, his daughter, played by Shailene Woodley, she had seen her mother messing around with this other guy, Michael Spear or something like that. And where Michael Spear had his hand on her mother's okole behind. So you know something's going on. They were in some kind of a club or something. So she spills it to her dad, right? That mom was having an affair. And Matthew King, being an attorney, likes research. He wants to know who this is, right? So he goes on this whole research kind of thing, you know, trying to find out who this guy is because the daughter doesn't know who he is. So they find out somehow, I forgot, they know his name, Spear. Somehow they find his name, right? And he's running on the beach. And he had already seen from the name Matthew Spear the face of what did Matthew Spear looks like, right? As he's running on the beach, he sees a guy running the other way, and he runs back again because it's Matthew Spear. So he starts small talk to try to, like an attorney does, they try to whittle things out of you, right? So he whittles a little bit out, and he finds out that this Matthew Spear is renting a cottage in Kaua'i. So he's renting a cottage. So he finds out where the cottage is, right? And he goes there and he sees Matthew Spear and his wife and his two little boys, right? And he's trying to gather information. So then he asks to go into the house, right? He says that it must have been Kaua'i, right? Because he used to go visit there as a child, Matthew King, because this was one of his relatives, great-grandparents' house on Kaua'i. So he goes in, and then the wife and the kids go outside to talk to Matthew King's daughter, the older daughter. So he confronts this guy and he says, "You were having an affair with my wife." And initially, this guy Spear says, No, I wasn't. Then he breaks down and says, yes. So then Matt King starts asking questions. What was the story with her? Blah, blah, blah. Tell me what the story is, because he wants to know what the situation was with his wife. So he gets a little more information there, right? This guy Spear is like petrified that the husband of his girlfriend, knows what was going on. And then he breaks to Spear that his girlfriend Elizabeth is in a coma and she's going to die. And then he tells him, you were having an affair with her. I think you should go and pay your last respects to her because you were part of her life. So Matthew Spear is Spear. He's traumatized. So it seems that later we find out that Spear's wife sort of catches that something's going on and she starts crying, probing him as well, right? And she's probing him and he breaks down finally and says, yes, he was having an affair, blah, blah, blah. But I still love you, even though I was having an affair with this other woman. And it seems he had met her at a club or something, and something attraction, right, that played between the two of them, right? So the wife picked up something. So eventually he never goes to check to give last respects, but Spear's wife comes with flowers to the hospital and says, my husband wouldn't come, but I felt it was important to come and pay last respects to my husband's girlfriend, right? So that's another scene that was pretty profound, which she shows up, right, with Matt there. Some of the other things, it seems that Elizabeth, his wife's dad, is a real gruff, grumpy old man, probably wealthy, because she had gone to Punahou, so they must have been prominent, Hawaiian in Hawaii, Kama'aina, Hawaii, and usually mostly from the old time. But bottom line is he starts talking about his daughter, Elizabeth, what a wonderful wife she was to Matt. And he was too stingy. He wouldn't give her the boat she wanted, blah, blah, blah. That's why she did this boating accident. That's why she is in this coma, because you're so stingy. You're holding on to all your. And he says, all my money came from my legal practice. I didn't pull anything from the estate, from the family estate. But this guy's pretty difficult, his father-in-law, tough cookie, right? So this is another scene that we see right there. And it seems that Elizabeth's mother has Alzheimer's. So they show her with Alzheimer's. This is the grumpy father, and she really doesn't quite understand that her daughter, she's sitting there in the hospital room with her daughter who's in a coma, and she just quite doesn't get it, These are all the different scenes, that are in the movie. And the last scene, which George Clooney, which is Matthew King. He's saying his last goodbyes to Elizabeth, to his wife, and he goes and he kisses her, and he says, "My pain, my love, my pain, my pain, my love." And he loved the woman, but she was pain, just like the marriage I had. I really understood that final scene. It was really, really profound. He's kissing this woman who's going to die, right? And he's getting into really letting go his feelings. And there's a lot of emotions of all the players here. So the producer, the director, is really showing. George Clooney, really phenomenal. He's a phenomenal actor, as we well know, right? And in every scene, and plus Shailene Woodley and little Scotty, the Amanda who's plays that role, they're showing their emotions, right? And very, very well done. The acting, Beau Bridges, all the actors, very superb, really good acting in this movie, right? Even Spear and his wife, all playing really, really good. The scenes in this movie were really, really good. Good photo photography, beautiful Hawaiian. This whole movie, obviously, is filmed in Hawaii. And you see, those of us in Hawaii who live here, we see a lot of familiar scenes in this movie on the different islands, right? We see, Honolulu. It brings in Punahou School. It seems that the older daughter was going to Mid-Pacific Institute, right? And so there's a lot of scenes in this movie that you'll see things very familiar. Plus that mansion on Old Poly Road, right? And the interior of his house, typical older, construction of that era from the 1890s or 1900s. There's a lot of back and forth between the different players, the different protagonists here. And you only see Elizabeth in that initial scene when she's on those skis behind the boat. After that, she's totally in a coma. There's no more acting from her. She's lying there, right? And there's interaction between Scotty. Oh, yeah. Scotty's at school, and she's a difficult child, right? And there's this other young girl that she's in school with, and she's been teasing her and stuff. And the mother of the young girl, local girl, is really upset, right? That Scotty, who's being nasty to her daughter, right? So they bring in the principal, and they bring in the psychologist, and then they have Matt King and Scotty go to the house of this other student because the mother had complained to the school, where Scotty has to apologize to this other girl, right? One of her fellow students. She's so nasty to her, right? So she apologizes, and the mother says, "You don't really mean it, you don't really mean it to be apologizing to my brother." She says, "Yes." So Matt King says to Scotty, show that you really feel bad, that you're apologizing, right? So that's another scene in this movie. So it's all these side scenes that sort of explain all the different factors involved with Matt King raising two daughters in the absence of his wife, who was caring for these daughters. I mean, she was the mother. I mean, Matt is so involved with his practice, his legal practice. Another aside, I worked for a engineering firm. I was a salaried employee during my marriage. And basically, they own you. Just like when you have your own practice and he's a legal guy, you're married to your job, right? So I had to spend weekends and evenings at the office to finish my work. So a lot of times in marriages, when the husband or the wife is married to their job, their family life suffers. And in this case of Matt King, his family life suffered. And for that reason, possibly Elizabeth strayed, because he was probably not home that much. And she just sort of missed company. So goes to this party by herself, and there's Matt Spear, and there's some kind of an attraction there. So they get into that as well, right? There was this couple in San Diego, right? He was an attorney and a physician, right? And over the years, what happened, he maintained his fitness, but his wife, she did not. She aged very much. And he had an affair with his secretary. And then with his wife, they had 4 children, right? So he had a family, and 4 children. And he married his secretary, and he left his wife, and she was so incensed, right, that she went to their house and she shot the 2 of them, right, both him and his second wife. So in this case of this movie, right, they're still maintaining they haven't let themselves go. So it wasn't an attraction thing that sometimes happens, right? It was the fact that he's married. He's married to his job, and that's another of the bigger factors in this movie that come into play as well. So the movie moves pretty quickly, the different scenes of in his house and in the hospital. A lot of scenes in the hospital where there's interaction. They're sitting there, Scotty, and the older daughter, right? And they're just watching the wife, right? And the parents there too in the hospital room, and they're just sitting there waiting to see what's going to happen, just trying to be with their family member, even though most of them didn't know initially that she was going to pass away. So, okay, so basically, I will give this movie a 10 because the acting was good, the scenery was good, the emotions that these players showed was really, really good. And I really enjoyed this movie, and it The Descendants, and it did get great reviews from a lot of reviewers and the public. So very good movie, and I think the host Jay Fidel will be back next week, and then we will have another. In 2 weeks, we will review another movie. Jay host and me the co-host, and we'll have to decide what we're going to do then. So that's pretty much it's a 10. Okay, mahalo, aloha.
Thank you so much for watching ThinkTech Hawaii. If you like what we do, please like us and click the subscribe button on YouTube and the follow button on Vimeo. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and donate to us at thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.